Sweet. I even get the countdown. That's awesome. So I just wanted to first thank you for letting us come and talk to you guys today. I actually hadn't heard about the Game Development Club until I met Livio a couple weeks ago, and so I'm really excited that you guys have a Game Development Club on campus and that you let us come talk to you today. So my name is Ryan Fitzpatrick, and I have another team member here. This is Lily in the middle of the room. And as was, there we go, we got the camera. So as we mentioned, or as was mentioned in the last meeting, we're both part of an entrepreneurship team in Elder College Management. We're participating in that program. It's a year-long program, and our venture is creating a mobile application game. So we're contacting Livio to kind of get some ideas and some feedback. And what I had planned for today when he invited us to come speak is a little less on the pitch side, although there would be some opportunities if you would like to work on this beyond what we talk about today. And more on we're looking for some input. We have a general concept of what we'd like to do. We have some parameters for what we're looking for, and we have a mini game that we are concurrently getting developed. But what we really want is the development process. We want some ideas, we want some brainstorming, we want people who are actually doing this on a day-to-day basis or looking to get into this, say, hey, that's a good idea, hey, that's not a good idea, and to give us some input. So first, the concept. What we are looking to do is we are developing a mobile application that introduces 3 to 7-year-olds to a foreign language through an interactive game-like atmosphere. Specifically, we're going to start with the French language. It helps that 2 of my team members are actually fluent French speakers. So we focus on this language, and the way we do it is we're going to create something like a map of Paris. And that this map would have interactive mini-games that would teach or introduce the foreign language in interactive ways. A little red balloon would tell them which landmarks have the mini-games, like one could be at the Eiffel Tower and the Arc de Triomphe. And for a general concept of what we're thinking, so for the first mini-game that we're already working on, we're doing a paint by numbers mini-game, where you have a guy holding a bunch of balloons and numbers in the balloons, and the numbers and the colors are all in the foreign language. And so that way, children who are working through how to match the number that's written with the number that's written out versus the number that's just written numerically, and the color to get the picture to work. But what we're looking for, and what we're looking to get help with, is actually working through a development process. So this paint by numbers game is we have someone, actually my brother actually goes to school up at ASU, I know, it's ASU, it's okay, and it's going to help us do that. But we didn't actually test this idea with anyone, we didn't actually get any feedback with anyone, we were just looking to get something out there and see, does this X work? So what we're really looking for is a development process. Find some brainstorming, come up with some different ideas, and actually put them in front of children before we actually develop something, and see, does this going to work? Is this what kids would actually like? And is this a good way to actually learn? We do have some contacts within the child psychology department and with the language learning department, so how that all plays out. We'd like to get some ideas in front of them to see what really we ought to be pursuing. So we've done a little bit of research on kind of the background of what we should be trying for, and it comes into kind of 2 categories. It's the language learning constraints and then the childhood learning constraints. And for language learning, kids have to be able to make mental connections to something they know. So one of the things we're thinking about with the whole paint by numbers is if you have a shape, well, they know what a shape is. You know what a balloon is. You know what a chair is. And if they can make a mental connection to something that they already have a mental conception for, learning a new word for that is much easier. Kids also learn best when they have to struggle for meaning. So if it's something where they're presented with a situation and they have to find a way to solve something by figuring out which word has what meaning, that's going to be a better situation than if we tell them, one is it, I don't know how to say one in French. But what is it? There we go. So one, rather than saying 1 equals and this is and that's blue, and how to do all that, if they have to try to figure that out, they actually learn better. Children use social and nonverbal cues to discover meaning. So in the same case like that, trying to figure something out by making a comparison or by having someone gesture at something that they're talking about makes that mental connection that they otherwise wouldn't have. And learning is improved when they're immersed in the culture and social setting. So keeping these in mind, language learning constraints, we also have a separate set of constraints from children's needs in when they learn. And so they learn by listening, seeing, imitating, and practicing. So there's this repetition, but also that interaction with it. They learn by doing, and we reinforce with pictures and sound. And it's easier if it's made emotional or fun. Interactive objects also need to be relatively large and clearly defined so that if you're pressing a button, they know that it's a button that they're pressing. If they're pointing at a chair, they know it's a chair. So we want the whole object to be identified. So first, I'll just open up the floor. Thoughts, what do you think? Because that's where we take it to the ideas section. In general, concept. Yes?
I think it's really smart how you're going about it, like by testing to make sure your idea works before you actually build the game. And yeah, that's definitely good how you did research on how the actual teaching educational process works. The only problem you might run into is the game that you make. You want to be careful. It's not a bad thing, but you might end up making a game that's more like a quiz than an educational game. And like for it to be educational, players have to actually learn something they didn't know before they played it, which means the game has to actually teach them. And you can't expect them. The only way, like if it was a quiz, they might learn something if they get the wrong answer and tell them what the right answer is. But it'll be better if the game teaches them and then they can use the game to practice it.
All right, so you're saying something more along the lines of teach them a concept and then have them use it, rather than, or did I miss that? You're saying the opposite.
I'm saying
have them use it and.
It kind of depends on what you want to do. You could create a game that's more like a quiz. It's just important to know that there's a distinction between a quiz and an education game.
All right. What are other thoughts? Just in general, the concept of a language learning app. Has anyone ever seen, successful gamification? Yeah.
Well, I have seen successful games that do this sort of thing, but I only vaguely remember one because I used to play as a kid. So.
Yeah. Because I remember this game. I don't remember the name at all, but it was this little frog, and you had this grid, and you had fractions and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I love that game.
Yeah,
you ate the certain
game.
ones, and you ate the.
And if you ate the wrong one, you died.
Yes, there you go.
So
yeah, we're looking for something that's kind of fun like that, because oddly, those are the games I remember playing when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they taught me anything, but I know my factors now.
But I was going to say, as far as your age group goes, 3 might be a little bit early for this concept, simply because the 3-year-old is still learning how to read, so.
Also how to use English.
Yeah, so it might be a little bit difficult to get it so where you're not relying solely on text.
Yeah, we were hoping to have some verbal instructions rather than, and kind of make it more almost cartoony, if you will. Where honestly, the idea of that whole map thing is you're taking the red balloon is like the little balloon that we'd be taking around, and you're taking around on a trip, and so you're exploring France with him or her, whatever you'd like to. It's gender neutral. But then you'd be actually just having fun and learning, it'd be talking with you, or so that's kind of where we're thinking of addressing that, but that does make it difficult to, I guess maybe we'd have to press colors and have it tell you what the color is and things like that.
In terms of age for learning, my Latin son was 2, and she was teaching him Italian and Latin and English. So he was trilingual. So I think the younger, the probably the better.
From a learning standpoint, we've definitely found all the research says pretty much doesn't matter how young you start, and that by 2, or I think it's by 4, 2,000 words or something like that. And then also
it's by 2.
It's by 2. It's 4. Yeah, it's 2 is 4,000. There we go.
And you're sitting there and you're like, how can a 2-year-old know over 4,000
I know.
words? They can't even use 4,000 words.
Yeah. Seriously. I know college students are doing 4,000 words, or at least they don't use them. But what we found, so the question would be, if they can learn it at that point, is there a way that we can make a game that they could also play with at that point, where they could learn it? Because
you're probably going to have to end up making 2 different games depending on age groups. You're going to have to teach older kids differently than infants.
Yeah. So do you think 7 is too old? Do you think that's, I don't have.
I think 7 is good.
Maybe you can solve this problem by having different levels of difficulty, and starting out beginner difficulty would be the lower age kids, and as you got older, you could play the different levels, I guess.
So you can play the game for your whole childhood.
That would actually be a smart business plan.
There you go. Well, and then that'll also make it so that you replayability. You know, when you're 3, you play until you're 4, and then you're done, and then you turn 5, and you're like, oh, it's the same game, so it's a new game.
Of course, the cool thing about that would be that like the 5-year-olds, if they played when they were 3, they would know some French already, and but if they started when they were 5 and they didn't want to play the easy section first, they wouldn't know what the easy section was about, and you wouldn't want to teach them twice. So I mean, it could be. I think difficulty levels are smart, but I might do it from like experience with the game rather than age.
Yeah, because that could be, you don't really want the 5-year-old to having the 3-year-old game, because even at that age, they don't want to be babies.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's really cool. What do you guys think about the whole mini game aspect?
It's tough.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, no,
I
no.
don't paint by numbers things seems like a kind of a weird thing for little kids. Like, I'm not sure if it's like a reward that they'll really like, but I think you kind of need to like co-op some of the like concepts of other games that kids really like Fruit Ninja, where it's just they're like just doing that, or like the like squishy game. So like I kind of have this idea like, what if there's like little balloons rising up, and then at the bottom it shows like a word, or it says a word, and then they got to pop the balloon that card that says.
Like the name of the color in French.
Yeah, actually, I didn't get it written down. I believe it was Spanish.
Yeah,
I know the Spanish one more than I know the French. Fortunately, 2 of my team members are fluent in French, so like that's theirs. But that would actually be really cool, and that would be more interactive and more challenging. And then there's a better payoff because you're actually like popping balloons. You really like popping balloons.
and then you have kind of like the time, so it encourages them to repeat it and do it fast and learn it.
So that's actually a good question, kind of following up. Do you think it's better to have a game that has, I guess, a score associated with it for like repeatability for that age group? Like, are we?
I get the feeling that they might not even pay attention to school.
Until
You
they
could-
get older, and then they'll be like, hey, look, this score is kind of low. Let's try and get better.
The score is like money you can buy stuff with if they pay attention.
So if you can actually, like, if there's a tangible payoff towards maybe even getting new mini games unlocked or something.
Well, you could learn the French currency that way.
Or maybe
Yeah.
the farther you get in the level, you will unlock pictures or something.
I think the feedback would be particularly good, especially with like some sort of feedback for a learning game. Would be
Yeah.
really important.
Well, what we were hoping to do is actually create a parent feedback, actually try to create almost a interactive online community where we really engage the parents and say, hey, does your kid like this? You know, and so that we're working more with the adult aspect of it. But did you have something in particular in mind in terms of the way that we could get feedback from kids? Because that would be fantastic, but I just can't think of any off the top of my head.
Feedback to kids, so that like they stay engaged. With
Oh, I see.
They know that
Okay.
they can measure their progress themselves.
Oh, I see. So that if they're more successful,
Right.
then, all right.
And money would probably be good because it's only positive. It's not like, oh, you failed. It's just like, oh, you only got 1 coin, but still 1 coin's better than no coins.
Yeah.
So it's never negative. It's just not as good as it could be.
Also, kids really love that kind of stuff because it makes them feel like they're interacting with the world. And like if you've ever seen like little kids or babies play with things, the best thing that they've always enjoyed is when they realize that their actions are having effects outside of them. So
And then if they could
little
actually
things like
earn
making-
something from like, hey, I redid this game, I did it better, and now I have something else that I can do as a result.
Yeah.
That'd actually be really cool.
But that can be done through little things like making something deep when you click on it, or
Like the little tangibility to the world or whatever it is.
yeah.
Or like balloons popping. I mean, that's
Yeah, I do like the balloons popping, that nice visceral. I still like popping balloons. You know?
Bubble
I just
around.
recognize now that it's loud and obnoxious. I just do it either when I really want to do something or just know around to annoy. So, in terms of any other kind of mini games that we were thinking of maybe doing some kind of a building game. You know, maybe something where you have blocks and you're setting them on top of each other.
That'd probably be a good idea. I would have many childhood memories of playing with blocks.
Yeah, so we're thinking maybe trying to, but
You can make a board game out of it, maybe,
make a board game out of it?
instead of an interactive video game. Like, it probably won't be a board game, it'll be just a physical game. Yeah, I feel like that would actually be better. If the game wasn't a video game, that might work better, because kids always like working with their hands. And it's actually, people have concerns with kids spending too much time in front of the screen, a digital screen.
I'm getting over that. Plus, this has a lot more accessibility to really
Yeah.
be able to give it to more people. You wouldn't have to manufacture 10 copies to make it like reach 10 children.
And actually, what's interesting on that point is that perspective is actually slightly changing. We did some research that discovered there's some a whole new movement in child psychology that is saying getting children in front of the right kind of things and letting them play with something is actually better. What they're saying, and I don't know the validity of this is not my theory, is that when a kid gets engaged in something that they're getting something out of,
Yeah.
the longer they spend with that, they're still getting something out of it, and that they know better how to engage themselves at that point than necessarily a parent might by saying, no, don't look at this, read this instead.
Yeah, and I think also a lot of the research with kids and like screens has been with TV and not really interactive stuff. And that's probably why, like I'm taking a media effects class this semester, and one of the things that we're talking about is how kids are really affected. They're really vulnerable when it comes to media, and they say that you really should never put an infant in front of a television screen or whatever, because they're just too vulnerable for that. And it's supported by research.
What do you mean by vulnerable? What are they vulnerable to?
Mainly because, like, if they're watching TV, they're affected. They're still trying to process the world and affect it, and they really can't tell the difference between something that's there and something that's on the screen. And yeah, stuff like that. But I'm not saying that it's a bad idea to make a video game for them, because especially a game, it could be helpful because they're interacting with it and they're getting stuff out of it. But it might be an interesting thing to look into, maybe what if it was a board game instead.
Well, one thing we're also
Well, that's going to be harder to make money on.
Yeah, one thing we're actually hoping to do is kind of like Angry Birds has done. You know, they've kind of branded this, here's this fun game, and now they have like clothing and things like that. Like I see little girls wearing Angry Bird shirts, and but what we'd like to do is take that to, this is like the starting place, and then absolutely develop other educational products that also benefit the same thing. Because I love board games, and I think spending more time with the family and playing board games is an awesome idea. So
From a business standpoint, it might be kind of smart to try to get some like recognizable intellectual property developed now, like the red balloon or something that like you can carry through to all of your products so that's unifying.
and that's what we're hoping with the Red Balloon, but we're also not 100% sure on our branding yet, but we like the name. Yeah, but no, that's actually a really good point. Also, for any games that you're developing, if you want to have like something to go through, it's not a bad idea, because then people know about it. It's not, you're not having to resell them an entirely new thing. You're selling them the sequel or the related cousin of what you've already done. So if we were to do a building game, what kind of things do you think we should do? We were thinking maybe trying to arrange shapes in the right way, but do you think they'd like just playing around with it, or maybe making it as tall as you could?
That could help teach physics, I think, but I mean, simple. Not like mathematical, no.
And we're going to introduce into the integral afterwards. Multivariable calculus by 7.
That's what I was saying.
But if we could do that, that would be impressive.
But like, let them play with the blocks and, give them a goal, like build it as high as you can or build it as wide as you can. This type of blocks or
I
things
feel like
that.
they'll probably learn that better just by playing with toy blocks
Mm-hmm.
than a game.
Well, so what I was thinking is, what if we had like different shape blocks? So you have like a square, a rectangle, a triangle, and then you learn the names for these different shapes.
And, as you're building it, you can have variations on the same game where some you're learning the shapes, some you're just building it to see
What
what
about
shapes fit together.
a sorting game where like blocks fall out of the sky and you have to push the ones that you don't want away? And the ones that you do want, they tell it to you in front of it. And maybe if it's like for the older kids, there would be like always changing. Like the announcer can come in like, okay, now get these blocks, now get these, and they have to pay attention so that they don't go into like this.
It makes me think of this one obscure game that I found out about called Rugu or something like that. And
Was it
that's basically what you do. You rotate this circle that has different shapes cut out of it. Blocks fall from the sky and you gotta line it up right. This arm.
You're saying?
You can work with like compound words or like that kind of concept of just adjectives or anything to describe.
That's what I was gonna ask. So, what is your like learning goal for this kind of? You want them to have like a bunch of different colors and numbers that they know from sentences?
So the first goal is to introduce them to the language itself. From what we've learned, when you learn this language, it's conceptual. When you go to school, you learn the shapes, the colors, those kinds of things. So we're starting kind of from that simple standpoint. And because we're ending at this point when they're in that 7-year range, we weren't necessarily looking for full sentence structure in terms of what they're actually being, I guess, tested on per se. But there's no reason we can't have full sentences being spoken to them on a regular basis. And so we're very careful because we're very aware of baby Einstein's, what was it, like 3 or 4 years ago that they got sued by everyone who bought from them for not making their children brilliant, So we're trying to say, hey, you know what, this is a cool thing. We'd like to give people an opportunity to be introduced to this language at this age, but we're not going to make a claim that it actually teaches language at this point, because that's just, we could have the best game in the world, but we can't make that kind of a judgment. But I actually want to follow up on your question, because you got a good point. So you're talking about compound words, maybe adjectives. How would you recommend that we kind of incorporate that into because mostly we were thinking nouns, because that's very obvious.
Use compound words that are like more common, kind of like bonjour, that's good day. So like common words and like just like adjectives that are associated with words, like chocolate chaud is hot chocolate. They drink that for breakfast. Such like, find words like that. Or just like any adjective like a blue, try to associate with like an actual, like something that's actually like a blue sky or something, like that that can associate with in like real life, really.
So try to find a way to almost simulate the culture that they're in, and give them the words for doing so. I don't know what we could do with that. Just wonder if there's a way to make that more interactive and, because all I can think of is, those workbooks you do, like I took Spanish in high school, workbooks in high school, what is this? And you have an arrow to it. And I still don't remember any of those words. I've taken Spanish quite a few times since then.
You could do something with like paintings or like art, and that's very visual, and you could like use the word for woman or dress, and you could vary difficulty level depending on the detail you want to focus on in the image. And you're talking about blending culture and language learning. France is very well known for its artistic art history.
Very true.
So
we'll have a Versailles mini game.
there you go.
But what would they do there? So we've got like a painting. Would they fill things in and kind of like the throwback to the paint by numbers?
You could have
Or would
like
it be
a bunch of different words like that describe the painting or don't describe the painting, and you'll have to either match it up with the correct and multiple paintings, or just have a single painting with like a woman in a blue dress, and then so they have like blue or dress or whatever, and they pick all the words that apply to the painting.
action?
Yeah.
Did anyone ever play any of the Dr. Brain games when they were growing up? Or was that before? Because they had a bunch of mini games, and you were like, what game was it? The first one was the Island of Dr. Brain, and you have to go save him because his island took over. It's 80s games.
Yeah.
And you go and you have to like figure things out to get there. It was kind of for the 6 to 10 age group. And that just kind of, I think they actually even had something that you had. I remember there was like, you had to match like the face with the background or something like that and determine who painted it. But that's interesting, then we can do it in a foreign language.
But you could also mix concepts, like you have a game for colors and a game for shapes, then you could do one that does colors and shapes together.
In fact, the minigame be unlockable, so you have to play the first two in order to get to the more flexible.
Yeah, and the more you reuse concepts, the more they'll remember them.
Well, it could be the same thing, maybe like in one that could just be circles that fall and there are different colors, and then the next time you start adding different shapes of different,
Yeah. So what do you think of the difference between, I guess, having fixed mini games where or fixed end mini games where you do it and you're done, versus having ones where it just gets harder every time you do it? Because I mean, if you can just set a difficulty level, then
Definitely have smaller video games will be better because children don't have a very long attention span, so if they keep doing the same thing over and over. Even though it's more difficult, they're not really going for the challenging aspect of the game. They're really going for the finding out about new things aspect of the game.
so they're not going to spend hours grinding out, you know.
Imagine like hanging out behind Tetris.
Wait a few years for the grinding.
It's also risky to make a lot of mini games because each mini game is basically its own game, and even if it's a small game, it's a lot of work.
But do you think there is a value in having like unlockable mini games? So like having maybe a set of, we're thinking maybe having like a set of 5 to start, and then one of the business models is actually, you know, like buying actually, like if you start in France, you know, Paris, then you can go buy, you know, another city in France or another city in another country with another language. But we could also have 5 core ones and then have like 2 or 3 extra ones, and if you do all 5 ones, then they discover.
Yeah, that's a good way to manage the path that they travel through the different mini games, so that you can leave. So that in case one depends, like has prerequisites.
So we actually lead them through an actual process of learning. So it's not just trying it out whenever.
Yeah, that could have advantages in terms of what you're able to teach, or how hard you can make the game get.
and if there are any benefits to learning like one concept before another,
Yeah.
Which I don't know that we want games that will, because I'm not sure, because the concern I have with that would be, what if they don't learn one concept very well?
Yeah.
Would that mean, I mean, how many times have you played a game and you get stuck on something?
Yeah.
I'm in the middle of Portal 2. I got stuck in this weird little part that I'm not even sure if I'm supposed to be in, and I stopped playing because I don't know.
I mean, like, not like you would have to, but like if there is any like subtle benefit to like knowing the colors before you know the show. Yeah, I have no child's psychology.
No, that's an interesting point to cover. I'm just, you know, sorry, I don't mean to.
Also, in terms of difficulty, it's kind of cheap to think of difficulty as like a setting where.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a valid point.
It's better to think of difficulty in terms of like mechanics, like how many ways of thinking we have to approach this problem as opposed to the other one. Like matching colors and shapes is harder than matching just shapes.
Versus like matching shapes that are formed really fast.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's cheap.
but then there's still a diminishing return on that.
Oh,
I mean, there's,
definitely. That's what I was saying.
but actually, because then you could have the same setup, one that they're familiar with, so you give them that feeling of knowing what they're doing, and then you could vary it so that you have maybe even a different catching tool. So the first time you can only catch squares, and then you can catch squares and triangles, and then you can only catch red squares. And that could be an interesting way of playing around with the same concept while still, assuming that they actually play it enough to do it more than once.
In addition to the mini games, I don't know if you've ever played like the Pajama Sam games or any of those. They have like the world itself was really clickable and interactable. Like you click on a tree and then like a snake would climb down, and then like a band of bugs would climb down. I mean, like everything would happen to the tree. Like 4 or 5 different things would happen when you click on it. So just in between, you could have sort of like casual, not limited, not structured areas
It's
where
like
they
a
can still
goal.
learn concepts.
Yeah, so more like exploring, or so.
Yeah, just like messing around, just
Like a sandbox.
sort of. Yeah, I mean, in these games you just clicked on things and then things would happen. And then,
that's a good way to approach the game design process. Make the toy first, and then build the game around it, and then maybe leave in room for them to just mess around with the toy by alone.
So what about like a almost a tour of Paris? Get them on a train and just
That'd be really cool. I think that'd be really neat.
you know just. But what so I haven't played Pajama Sam, so I'm not familiar. What would happen when they click on something?
Like really crazy things, like you click on a distant tree and then like a firework would go up behind it, and then, like I don't know, something else crazy might happen. Like a giant dinosaur poke his head out. I mean, it's just like really weird things.
Like you clicked on palm tree, then a coconut falls down. And
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Like and, you know, the coconut might open up and there might be a present inside. I mean, who knows? It's weird stuff, but it was for kids. And I mean, also like the Puff and Fatty Bear games and any of those. Huge entertainment, I think those.
I'm also wondering how could you possibly like accidentally confuse kids by showing them the full map? Like maybe they don't know what.
We're actually planning on doing more of a cartoony map.
Yeah.
I just wanted something on the
Definitely.
graphic, and I was doing this on Friday night, so I was in a rush. But yes, we're planning on actually having like a kind of really cartoony overall graph, you know, so that there's not a.
An important thing would be to make sure it isn't too detailed. Like, don't decorate it too much. It's important to just leave in the important stuff to stand out and be easily identified.
All right, that's it. Yeah, and that kind of fits in with what we learned about, you know, making objects that are definable. So that's a really good point.
I think that exploring ideas with that dimension is really cool because in addition to having unique images, themes like colors and shapes, when you're exploring the world, you click on something that doesn't necessarily have to belong to a certain category, like a tree.
Yeah.
I guess wouldn't be like in the shapes, it wouldn't be in the colors, so it'd just be a tree. So when you click on a tree, you'll like tell you what a tree is, and then if a dinosaur pulls its head out, then you tell them what dinosaur is. You don't have to like make a whole thing to figure out like, to put in animals and try to fit the dinosaur into like.
I think a dinosaur in France is an awesome idea.
Yeah, okay, we kind of want to be careful about.
Yeah, we don't want to make it too confusing for them. The kids, I mean, how many people grew up on Narnia? I mean, we all know that purple dinosaurs don't run around and sing.
Now, right now, with them, I didn't know that. So,
All right, that's so maybe a hint of realism, but without too much extra detail that kind of distracts from it.
And one very core functionality that I would choose in a lot, I'm not sure if you guys are going to use this, sound recognition, because if the game try to get the player to speak the language,
Yeah.
all the mini games will be really different, and the whole dynamic will be altered.
That's a good idea, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime in the first generation when we leave in the second. Just as, well, speech recognition software is so bad right now anyways.
Like you can buy software and it might not even work that well.
Yeah, I mean, Siri is kind of top of the line right now, and you know, I mean, in terms of consumer products, and that's still not very good for.
The advantage of using the speech recognition software would be that it only recognizes the word that player tries to say, like only within a really kind of strict boundary. Like the player can pronounce something else entirely different and try to have it recognized. Where
You can try.
So it might be easier if we have a set definition of they're looking for this word, doesn't come close enough to that word to count as speaking it.
yeah, and it's just like the speech recognition will help them get the pronunciation right. So,
Or you could just try, like what a lot of kids shows do, just talk to the kids, ask them to say something, and not even listen to any of it. And hopefully a parent or somebody is playing with them so that they can help us.
Yeah, that's actually something we've got a survey that we're throwing out to some parents at local schools, and one of the things we're asking is, are they interested in this as a interactive tool where they can work with the kid, or are they interested more in this as a, here, you know, it's got a long car ride, have the iPad and sit in the back and play the game. And we could always develop two different modes or something.
I was kind of wondering about like a variable language. So like depending on where they are, how comfortable they feel with it, you could like make more things be in French, like different names of things, instructions, more of like the extra stuff.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe more instructions in French, maybe, and maybe that's a great way to do difficulty levels, is, you know,
Or like average experience.
Maybe as you progress through the game, more things appear in
It doesn't make you
so that like you've reached a certain level and we assume that you know what you're doing at that point. So we are,
A good idea might be to have like two different modes of the game. One is for like the learning purpose, and it has like fun elements in it, but it's mostly for learning. And then there's another mode which is just mainly for having fun, just messing around with it. And that way you could motivate them to use the learning mode more because it like unlocks time in the fun mode or something like that.
yeah. How many of you, actually I'm curious because I know personally when I have games that I can do free play, I don't usually do free play, but I actually like the achievement. I was just wondering, is that abnormal or is that just the way I tend to play games?
Yeah.
All right.
If the toy is fun to play with, then you'll like free play. But if it's not, then
Yeah, and I think they still need some sort of feedback. I mean, whether it's the toy itself that provides them that feedback, the way that it works or interacts, I mean, that would be kind of hard to make mechanically.
Yeah. No, that's a challenge.
Yes.
How do we make a game that's fun to play, that it introduces them meaningfully to another language?
Yeah.
And
I have a feeling it's going to be mostly just like a fancy practice tool.
and maybe we start thinking of it in terms of a fancy practice tool. That can inform some design decisions.
Just embrace that fact.
I do know one thing about little kids in the 3 to 6 range at
All right.
least. If you have certain elements that are, like you had said earlier, you click on it and it does something, you don't have to have like a whole bunch of zany things that happen. It could just be that one thing that happens over and over. And the kid will be just totally excited by it every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you can set off fireworks by clicking on a tree, I think they'll enjoy that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was kind of late, but have you guys discussed like kind of social aspects?
We haven't really.
Well, I have some ideas about it.
Absolutely.
Have you introduced like Khan Academy at all?
I'm familiar with them. I haven't actually done any there.
Or if you're a teacher, you can kind of manage a whole classroom.
Yeah.
But in a different sense, if you're a kid, you can have kind of like you can like compare your stats and whatever to your friends and stuff.
All right.
That's always like something that makes things really addictive, and you come back to it is when your friends beat you at it, you want to play again so you can beat them. That's usually like pretty good.
Yeah, like if you're in a class, this will probably work more with the older kids.
Yeah.
But if you're like in a class and you can see like a high score table and everybody in that table, you know who they are, that's definitely more fun.
Yeah, if you know who they are, I like it.
I'm still playing games to beat my roommate on different versions, so he can go and beat me again.
But what I was saying with the Khan Academy part was,
Yeah.
if your mom or dad, your parents want to monitor your status as well, and your friends, they can actually view everything as well, and they can comment on stuff. So I mean that can be useful for not for the kids, for the parents who are paying for it.
No, that's a good point. We were hoping to have some kind of feedback or social mechanism for the parents, but hadn't specifically thought of it that way. So that's
Like a menu.
Check out Khan Academy and like the teacher interface, so you can kind of see.
So do they have like a sample you can look at? Because all I
Yeah, no, they have videos demonstrating like on TED.com they have like a demonstration saying like this is a paradigm shift in teaching in a way because
I hope it is because they do some really cool stuff.
yeah, the teacher can come by and be like, oh, Timmy's having a problem with getting past adding odd numbers for some reason. So she can go.
The computer glitch.
Yeah.
I've actually heard some people say that they really don't like the
the teacher to have more information.
It's definitely empowering students, people who don't have access to good teachers or
Yeah.
don't have access to schools.
No, that's very true.
That's really unworking with the video. Probably there.
Well, that brings up a good point, because we have to make sure that what we do doesn't end up make it look like we're trying to replace any kind of language
Like
learning in school, or
You can get a
not that I think a 3 to 7-year-old game would, but you know.
but like you can theoretically get a bad teacher who just plays Khan catching videos all day in class.
Which might be better than the teachers I've had in the past.
Yeah, I mean, there are some bad teachers. And getting good educational stuff in places that have bad teachers where it's hard something. That's good, that's totally worthy. But I mean, I'm not even sure that that would be much of a problem for you guys a lot of it. Yeah. You're just, I mean, I don't think anyone's gonna go, oh my gosh, they know French now, you know.
Oh, there are teachers.
We have to sue them. The
All 12 French teachers will
Yeah.
join class after the lesson.
You can hire union French. Not even like.
Sort of related to this, it would probably be a good idea to like look at your competitors, look at other children's games, like see what they do well, what they do wrong, and try and learn from that. And not just language learning games, but just fun games that are just there to be games and other modes of learning. See what sort of games
play those games.
This actually is something interesting to kind of pose to the club, because we've looked at the specific subset of games in terms of mobile applications, but haven't really spent a lot of time, you know, aside from what we remember playing when we were growing up, looking at it from the broader standpoint. So what do you see as the difference in between scope and development of, you know, a mobile game versus, you know, like a full software package? Do we think into, like, do you think of a mobile game as being something that you could port to a software, you know,
Well,
OS,
if it's-
or the
If it's
reverse?
designed for a smartphone with a touch screen, that's gonna be tough. If it's not, if you're porting it to a non-touch screen system, it's gonna affect. You're gonna probably have to like rework all the menus and controls and
Yeah.
basically make the game again.
So are there any trends that you're noticing in terms of like kinds of games that are going into the mobile kind of platform versus?
Yes, with mobile, the games tend to be more bite-sized, or they can be played in a bite-sized fashion. Like each level takes like a minute or two.
Arcade style games.
Yeah.
This-
That's actually really good, because who doesn't remember putting coins in arcade?
Yeah, I remember.
And you can spend hours doing that too.
The only problem is that arcades, they're designed to make more money, so you die more often.
Yeah.
The difficulty spikes.
Maybe you could have an arcade mode where, you know, it's that much harder, but, yeah.
Well, if we're doing some kind of a feedback system in terms of things that they get for like money or points or something, then having a free arcade style might actually be a great way. Yes, it's much harder, but your rewards are greater. So maybe, you know,